everyone, my name is Intan Ellysa. So here are some of the areas where the comprehensive email security approach to phishing attacks maps to the mature attack framework. So first of all, we go to initial access. So we utilize our web crawler to discover newly established phishing infrastructure, and our advanced machine learning engine examine the real text and image of an email, and our gateway functionality blocks malicious email and rewrites defined URL. Then, for the execution, we stop the malicious file from entering the environment by proactively blocking them before delivery. We also define or rewrite malicious URL content in the email to ensure that malicious content is not executed.
For defense evasion, it detects BEC, domain mismatches, as well as user and brand impersonation that including malicious fish that bypass SPF/DKIM/DMARC, which are the common attacks to the evade detection. With the advanced machine learning and a team of security experts, it helps to stay on top of the latest threats. For credential access, it is proactively prevents spear phishing and other malicious emails from the ability to gain access to credentials by way of credential harvesters and other malicious attacks.
For this part, I will walk you through discovery and also lateral movement. For discovery, the adversary is trying to figure out about our environment, so we will proactively block malicious email, which will then help to prevent an attacker from gaining entry and understanding our environment. Next, lateral movement, which is the adversary is trying to move through your environment. We can detect lateral movement via journaling. Compromised accounts passing phishing email to internet employees can be detected and stopped via message retraction.
Hello everyone, I will be talking about some areas that we'll be using where a comprehensive email security approach to phishing attack maps to the military attack framework. So, firstly is command and control, which is taking a comprehensive approach to phishing across web and network traffic. Next is by utilizing recursive DNS, integrating into a next generation firewall and an array of other security tools via an extensive array of APIs. As for exfiltration, utilizing the same approach to exfiltration as it does with command and control, and it also provides critical value in its holistic email security approach. Next area that I will be talking about is impact. So it protects your end user by blocking malicious attacks such as ransomware, and also by proactively blocking the malicious email before it reaches the inbox. And lastly, it saves a business or individual from large-scale disruption and also impact.
So we go to in deep in initial access. First of all, drive-by compromise. There are a couple of mitigation that can be implemented by organization by exploit the protection. Some solution can be used to keep watch for activities that take place during exploitation. Windows Defender Exploit Guard WDEG and the Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit EMET are some of the example solutions. Exploit public-facing application, we can mitigate by exploit protection too, such as web application firewall may be used to limit exposure of application to prevent exploit traffic from reaching the application. For detection, we can monitor application logs from abnormal behavior that may indicate attempted or successful exploitation. And then we can use deep packet inspection to look for artifacts of common exploit traffic such as SQL injection. Web application firewall may detect improper inputs attempting exploitation. Then we go to external remote services. With multi-factor authentication, we use strong two-factor or multi-factor authentication for remote service account to mitigate an adversary ability to leverage stolen credentials but be aware of multi-factor authentication interception technique for some two-factor authentication implementation. For the phishing, we can mitigate by using restrict web-based content. So, determine if certain website or attachment types that can be used for phishing are necessary for business operation, and consider to blocking access if activity cannot be monitored well or if it poses a significant risk. Then next is supply chain compromise. Perform audit or scan of system permission, insecure software, insecure configuration to identify potential weaknesses. And then perform periodic integrity check of the device to validate the correctness of the firmware, software, program, and configuration. Integrity check, which typically include cryptographic hash or digital signature, should be compared to those obtained at non-valid state, especially after events like device reboots, program downloads, or program restart. For a trusted relationship by using user account control, we can properly manage account and permission used by party in trusted relationship to minimize potential abuse by the party and if the party is compromised by an adversary. Then we go to command and scripting interpreter. For behavior prevention on endpoint on Windows 10, enable attack surface reduction ASR rules to prevent Visual Basic and JavaScript from executing potential malicious downloaded content. So we monitor the log file for process execution through command line and scripting activity. So this information can be useful in gaining additional insight to adversary action through how they use native processes or custom tools. Also, monitor for loading of module associated with the specific language. And then we go to execution. Um, Exploitation for client execution, so we can exploit protection to mitigate the attack. Security application that look for behaviors user during exploitation such as Windows Defender Exploit Guard WDEAG and the Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit EMET can be used to mitigate some exploitation behavior. So we control the flow. Integrity checking is another way to potentially identify and stop a software exploit from occur. And many of these protection depend on the architecture and target application binary for compatibility. Then we go to user execution. We can use behavior prevention on endpoint too. So on Windows 10, we enable attack surface reduction ASR rules to prevent executable files from running unless they meet a prevalence age or trusted list criteria, and to prevent Office application from creating potentially malicious executable content by blocking malicious code from being written to disk. So note that cloud deliver protection must be enabled to use certain rules. Next, we go to the table defense evasion. So for masquerading, we can restrict file and directory permission. So use file system access control to protect the folder. So restrict access by setting directory and file permission that are not specific to user or privileged accounts.
Now for the area under defense evasion, we'll be taking three parts. Firstly is obfuscated files or information. By encrypting, encoding, or otherwise obscuring a payload's or file's contents on the device or in transit, adversaries may try to make it difficult to find or analyze the payload or file. Next is input injection. By abusing Android's accessibility APIs, malicious application can input inject into the user interface to stimulate human interaction. And lastly, under defense evasion, virtualization, sandbox evasion. A variety of techniques may be used by adversaries to identify and avoid virtualization and analysis environments. This can entail altering behavior after looking for signs of a sandbox or virtual machine environment, which is known as VME, such as artifacts. Next, I'll be talking about the area under credential access. We'll be taking 4 parts. Firstly is exploitation for credential access. In order to obtain valuable credentials or to get around the process to access systems, adversaries may target credentialing and authentication methods for exploitation. Next is forced authentication. By commanding or compelling a user to automatically supply authentication information using a system that they can intercept, adversaries may obtain credential information. The third one is input capture. By obtaining user input to gather information or credentials. And lastly is still application access token. Application access tokens are a valuable source of credentials that adversaries can use to gain access to remote systems and resources. As for the area, which is lateral movement, we'll be taking 2 parts. Firstly is internal spear phishing. After gaining access to accounts or system within the environment, to acquire further information or to take advantage of other users within the same organization. Next is remote services. A service like Telnet, SSH, or VNC that is made to accept remote connections may be accessed by adversaries using valid accounts. As for the area under collection, we have selected one, which is email collection. Users' email may be targeted by adversaries who want to get personal data. Emails may include private or sensitive information that could be useful to opponents, such as trade secrets. Email from mail services or clients can be collected or forwarded by adversaries. This is the steps that we'll be using in order to counter-attack phishing.
For input capture under the collection, we may use methods of capturing user input to obtain credentials or collect information. During normal system usage, users often provide credentials to various different locations such as login pages or portals or system dialog boxes. Under command and control, we will use dynamic resolution, encrypted channel, fallback channels, proxy, and web service. For dynamic resolution under command and control, we may dynamically establish connections to command and control infrastructure to evade common detections and remediations. This may be achieved by using malware that shares a common algorithm with the infrastructure that we use to receive the malware's communications. For encrypted channel, we may employ a non-encryption algorithm to conceal command and control traffic rather than relying on any inherent protections provided by a communication protocol. Despite the use of a secure algorithm, these implementations may be vulnerable to reverse engineering if secret keys are encoded and or generated within malware samples or configuration files. For fallback channels, we may use fallback or alternate communication channels if the primary channel is compromised or inaccessible in order to maintain reliable command and control and to avoid data transfer thresholds. For proxy, we may use a connection proxy to direct network traffic between systems or act as an intermediary for network communications to a command and control server to avoid direct connections to their infrastructure. Many tools exist that enable traffic redirection through proxies or port redirection, including HTRAN, ZX proxy, and ZX port map. These types of proxies is used to manage command and control communications, reduce the number of simultaneous outbound network connections, provide resiliency in the face of connection loss, or to write over existing trusted communications paths between victims to avoid suspicion. For web service, we may use an existing legitimate external web service as a means for relaying data to a compromised system. Popular websites and social media acting as a mechanism for C2 may give a significant amount of cover due to the likelihood that hosts within a network are already communicating with them prior to a compromise. Using of web services may also protect back-end C2 infrastructure from discovery through malware binary analysis while also enabling operational resiliency. Under exfiltration, we will use exfiltration over web service and transfer data to cloud account. For exfiltration of a web service, we may use an existing, legitimate external web service to exfiltrate data rather than their primary command and control channel. Popular web services acting as an exfiltration mechanism may give a significant amount of cover due to the likelihood that hosts within a network are already communicating with them prior to compromise. Firewall rules may also already exist to permit traffic to these services. For transfer data to cloud account, we may exfiltrate data by transferring the data, including backups of cloud environments, to another cloud account they control on the same service to avoid typical file transfers or downloads and network-based exfiltration detection. Under impact, we will use account removal and data destruction. For account removal, we may interrupt availability of system and network resources by inhibiting access to accounts utilized by legitimate users. Accounts may be deleted, locked, or manipulated, changed, cracked to remove access to accounts. We may also subsequently log off and perform a system shutdown or reboot to set malicious changes into places. For data destruction, we may destroy data and files on specific systems or in large numbers on a network to interrupt availability to systems, services, and network resources. Data destruction is likely to render stored data irrecoverable by forensic techniques through overwriting files or data on local and remote drives. Common operating system file deletion commands such as del and rm often only remove pointers to files without wiping the contents of the file themselves, making the files recoverable by proper forensic methodology. This behavior is distinct from disk content wipe and disk structure wipe because individual files are destroyed rather than sections of a storage disk or the disk logical structure.
For this part, I will be talking to you about the impact based on the terms highlighted in purple. So the first one is data encrypted for impact. Adversaries may encrypt data on target system or on large numbers of systems in a network to interrupt availability to system and network resources. The second one will be data manipulation. In order to influence external outcomes of high activity, adversary may insert, delete, or manipulate data, threatening its integrity. Data manipulation can affect a business process, organizational understanding, or decision making. Defacement. Adversaries can modify visual content on an enterprise network, affecting its integrity. Defacement can be used to send a message, intimidate, or take false credit for an intrusion. Defacement uses disturbing or offensive images to cause user discomfort or pressure or compliance with messages. Diswipe. To interrupt system and network resources, adversaries may wipe or corrupt raw disk data on specific system or in a network. With direct write access, adversaries can overwrite this data. Adversaries may wipe arbitrary disk data and or disk structures like the MBR. Try wiping all these sectors. Endpoint denial of service. Endpoint denial of service attacks degrade or block user services. Endpoint denial of service can be performed by exhausting the system's resources or causing a persistent crash. Websites, emails, DNS, and web apps or services. Denial of service attacks have been used for political purposes, hacktivism, and extortion. Inhibit system recovery. To prevent system recovery, adversaries may delete or remove built-in operating system data and disable recovery services. This may prevent backups and recovery. Network denial of service. Network denial of service degrade or block user access to targeted resources. Network denial of service involve exhausting network bandwidth. Website, emails, DNS, and web-based apps are examples of resources. Network DOS attacks have been used for political purposes, hacktivism, and extortion. Resource hijacking. Adversary may use co-opted source system to solve resource-intensive problems affecting system and or hosted system availability. Resource hijacking can validate cryptocurrency transactions and earn virtual currency, for example. Service stop. Adversaries can disable system services to prevent legitimate users from using them. Stopping critical services or processes can impede incident response or aid an adversary environmental damage goal. And the last one is the system shutdown or reboot. Adversaries may shut down or reboot systems to block access to or destroy them. Operating system may contain shutdown or reboot commands. These commands can be used to shut down or reboot a remote computer or network device. Shutdowns and reboots can disrupt legitimate users' computers.